Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. It's your host, Taryell Simmons, in the building, and I got some special guests. I know one of them is in Oakland. I know weather ain't all sunshine and rainbows right now in Oakland, but we got love for Oakland, the Bay Area, and I want to welcome Madison and Simone. How are you both today?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Yes, doing very well.
Simone, are you in Oakland too? Where are you joining us from?
No, I'm actually joining you guys from Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Where it does rain
Houston,
a lot.
Texas. It does. But y'all been raining a lot of W's lately, from the World Series. And I don't know what else y'all got going out there, but y'all got a lot of W's going y'all way.
Yeah. We're pretty lucky out here.
Yeah.
Astros fans are very excited.
Yes, they were. So now I like to usually start off the episode by asking a very profound question. You know, like usually in the interviews, they start off with, tell me about yourself. I like to ask, who is Madison Long and Simone May? And I know that's a deep question, and I know both of y'all might have a different version of that answer, but who are you? Like, for those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before, and I'm gonna start with Simone since you gave us the last answer, and we'll start from there and then work our way to Madison.
I feel like there's so many different ways you can answer that question. Who I am now is also not who I'm going to be hopefully 10 years from now. So, yeah, I think the best way for me to answer that question is, I think I've always just been kind of the person who is always looking at what's next, even if other people might look at me and underestimate what value I can bring or create for others. And so, I always remember this time when I was in like 6th grade. And I think this is just like a mantra that I've lived my whole life on. I was in 6th grade. I switched schools because my sister has a learning disability. And I was trying to make new friends, and like, it was really hard. You're in middle school, you're with all these new people. And so I had like spent a lot of my energy around that age trying to fit in with like all of these different people that I was just now meeting, and, trying to get invited to different things and all this different stuff. And I, kept coming up short. Wouldn't want to hang out with me, all this different stuff. And then I realized, like, screw that. I'm just going to be myself. And if nobody likes me, it's whatever. I'm the weird kid who nobody likes, and I have one friend. Like, that's fine. And I think, like, me being okay with who I am has allowed me to be who I am today, which is like, I am very much so what you see is what you get. And I'm always looking at what's next, even if other people can't see it for me. So that answers your question.
Oh, it does. We going to probably dive deeper into that a little bit later, but let's get Madison in here. Madison, you don't have to take it as the same route that Simone took it. You can take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah. I am a connector who values building community in ways that are like meaningful to me and the people around me. I think that that's something I've always been really intentional about and get a lot of joy from. And so whether that's socially, in work, in leading, with family, building community and a strong community and helping people reach their goals, meet their needs, expand their horizons. I really look for opportunities to do that.
Ooh, I love that. And I feel like a lot of the work that you and Simone are co-creating together has enabled you to do that through the business.
Absolutely.
So now tell the people about this amazing business that you've created. And how did you meet, and how did this idea come to be, and then jump into the story? Who wants to get us started?
Yeah, so you want us to start with how we met before talking about what the business is?
Yeah, how you met.
Yeah, I can give a quick rundown. Simone and I actually met freshman year of college in our college dorm. Just were looking for friends, and we just instantly bonded and connected. We had, of course, other friends, but I think it was really wonderful that me and Simone were able to grow so close. By senior year, we were living together. And then when we graduated and went to our respective careers, she started in technology consulting with Accenture in Atlanta. I went to Microsoft in Seattle, working in finance. We still remained incredibly close and were able to, help each other with the transition from undergrad to being an adult, with relationships, with friendships, family, all these different intricate things. And we'd really built a really solid foundation that involved a lot of trust, involved a lot of accountability and goal setting and all these other amazing qualities, that when Simone called me about the idea for what is now Clutch back in 2019, it was a no-brainer to want to partner up on this venture and see where we could take it. And so since that call in 2019, it's pivoted. COVID happened. We kept a lot of things close to our chest until 2021, when we really were like, okay, let's do this. Let's make that commitment. Let's quit our jobs, raise capital, and start really talking to customers. And so what Clutch does is we connect the next generation of creators and creative freelancers to emerging brands and brands looking to expand their digital marketing presence together. That way, these young creators are able to make money in an independent and empowering way, and these brands are able to scale their digital marketing presence in a sustainable way that also is authentic and can engage new audiences on new platforms and new channels. And so it's been really amazing being able to see that vision come to fruition, especially this past year in 2022, to be able to build a team together and to be able to really get our product out there.
Yeah, I love that. You know what excites me is that there's two black women that's doing this and making a way for little girls that probably are gonna see your success and be like, oh, there's somebody that looks like me doing this, and giving opportunities to other creatives that look like me doing this. So I'm excited. Simone, how did you come up with this idea? And what was it like calling your buddy up to say, hey, I got this idea, and let's make this thing happen.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it also is important for me to bring up the fact that this is we've iterated on this company like 3 or 4 times before we arrived at Clutch. Um,
Mm,
but I think initially when I called Madison with the idea, um, it was actually through like this incubator at Accenture. I was at a boot camp of sorts that they always have, and we were just I think we were like doing something in a workshop that just sparked the idea um, before I called her with what was originally something different. And, I think through those iterations, we've reached this point. But I also think it's important to know that whatever your first idea is might not end up being your last. And it certainly won't be the only. So, it was I just knew she was the person to call because I had known that she had like a very entrepreneurial spirit, even from the time we were in college, just like always trying to start new businesses and thinking of new ideas. And like she also follows through on communication, and like knowing all those things was like really um, what drove me to call her specifically too.
yeah. And I think what you just mentioned there is like so important, and I hope a lot of entrepreneurs hearing you both talk today understand that, because I think sometimes we get stuck on this idea and vision, and sometimes we don't know when to pivot because we're so focused on the outcome of this idea that we had, and once you start to do, I don't know how you all did your market research and so forth, and the looked at the pivot, but some people don't go into that deep to look at that, or um figure out why they need to pivot,
Yeah.
or what things, like what was that, like why is this important to you when you mention it, and either you or Madison can speak to it, like why was it so important to go through that process, and then what did you learn from the process when you realized, oh, we have to pivot to this because this is what, you know, is really the I don't know, our
Sweet
client
spot.
bases, our
Yeah.
sweet spot is demanding from us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the initial. Oh, sorry, Madison.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say the initial reason we pivoted was actually because of COVID. And the initial idea we had was something that would support stadiums, essentially people being in person. And now, that was the original plan, but what happened was stadium shut down, and we had always had one thing in mind, which was like supporting the next generation, keeping them along the journey of what it means to be able to make money on their own terms, essentially. I think the first wave of that was in the 2010s when we had like Uber and all this gig economy work popping up out of nowhere, and the idea that you didn't necessarily need to have just one job to fulfill a role in your lifestyle. So uh, that was something that we always kept in mind, and thinking about what the next generation really needs was always a part of that. But I'll let Madison kind of continue on from what I said because I think she led the next two pivots um, after that.
Yeah, Simone's absolutely right. Our North Star never changed. We were very highly convicted about helping empower the next generation. And so even when we were like, wow, COVID literally kind of tore our business model up, we never thought about, oh, should we shut down? Da da da. We were like, no, there's a need that these young folks still have. How can we meet it with the technology we've already developed and with the anecdotes we've been able to get from customers on both sides of the marketplace? And I think that when we pivot, like it's scary in the sense that, hey, we might have to throw some stuff away to be able to get to this next direction. But I don't think Simone and I have ever looked at it as a weakness. And I think oftentimes people look at pivoting as a weakness. I think every time we've pivoted, it's sharpened us and gotten us in a way more advantageous situation. And it is something that when people say fail fast, what they're saying is not fail fast and then experience defeat and loss and grief and all this other stuff. They're talking about fail fast and pivot, fail fast and find the next solution. And so I always embraced that kind of ideology. I think Simone and I going to Purdue University, which is a very rigorous academic uh, uh, track and program, also showed us that failing in one aspect does not make you a failure. And so our identity was never tied up in whether or not the initial idea was going to be successful. Our identity still isn't tied up if Clutch is going to be successful. But our passion and drive and what wakes us up every morning is tied up in are we actually helping empower the people we're set out to empower? And if we're not, we need to get back on track.
I love that. Because sometimes we tend to, as humans, internalize that failure and not realize, okay, nah, this failure is teaching me something that I need to move a different direction, right? And I love the other thing I love is that Simone knew exactly who to call. She's like, I'm gonna call Madison. That's my North Star. I got this idea. She's going help me figure out what the next thing is. How do you, Madison, pick the right people on your team to accomplish this dream of yours? And I think that's another thing that a lot of people have trouble doing. Like, Simone looked like she knew you was gonna be this no star to be on her team and then help her. Like, how do you as you've
I,
grown this
Mhm.
amazing team that's doing it?
Yeah, I want to say that it's always a push and pull. So in college, I was pitching Simone ideas all the time. I was like, you're a computer scientist. What do you think about this? Like, blah, blah, blah. And nothing ever materialized until we started working on what we're working on now. But also, the reason she called me is because I was also looking to her for the technical expertise of the way she solves problems. I solve problems in a very business oriented, high level, um, kind of intuitive way. She solves problems in a very thoughtful, metrics driven, research based way. And so that complementary problem solving skill set was something that, even if we didn't know it back then, was why we work so well together. It's something that since working together, we're so grateful to have. And so I think as we continue to build out the team, we always look for our weak points, which is another part of not viewing weakness as a failure, right? Being able to say, okay, I actually don't have enough expertise on sales. I need to hire someone for that. Or I don't have enough expertise on setting up, let's say Simone, setting up an architecture in cloud. Let's hire an expert on that. We have always looked for people who have not just complementary, but actually filling the gaps on our team. When it comes to actually hiring good people, I think that's setting a really good example. I believe, and this might just be me, but I believe inherently that all people are good people when they have the ability to thrive and do their best work. And so at our company, we try to make the environment, the working environment, one where you can give feedback. Is your job no longer feeling good? And if not, why? What can we do to get you back on track to feeling good and being your best self? Because when people feel good about the work they're doing, they're going to show up and be better employees, better team members, and whatnot, and bring a better energy to the culture of Clutch. And so our values really focus on balance, safety, and transparency, which have nothing to do with product results or anything like that. But balance, safety, and transparency are our core tenets to making sure that our employees can thrive and then allow our customers and creators to thrive as well. And so it's been really cool being able to curate an amazing team, but it's due to that kind of value set that Simone and I created.
Did you want to add anything to that, Simone?
Yeah, I'll just add that I also think that when it comes to hiring, giving people the opportunity to expand is important as well. So, one, when they join your team, don't just throw them into the fire. Try to like bring them along the journey and give them time to become more comfortable. And when it comes to finding the right talent, it's a mix of personality and hard skills. So, like, I'm not always going to be looking for the smartest, best developer because I might need somebody that actually knows how to communicate and understands that the business need is more important than some fancy new architecture that is going to like blow everyone's mind, right? Like, we need to make sure that we're hiring the people for the situation and not necessarily um, the opposite. So, filling the gap, but also making sure that you're hiring someone that fills the team's need, can support the team overall.
Love that. Now, since you both have done several different pivots and been able to, lean on each other to get unstuck, what comes to mind for me is like the entrepreneurs that would listen to this and hear this and are feeling stuck right now. What's some words of encouragement would you share to someone who feels stuck?
Don't stay there. No, be seriously. That's easier said than done. But I think like honestly, really like leaning on your community and talking to people about what you're dealing with would actually surprise you. Like you'd be surprised at who the people are in your life that can tell you like, hey, why don't you just try this? Or hey, I know this person who can, help you out. Or hey, like have you, you know what I mean? Giving you that kind of advice. And also just like from a mentality perspective, there's going to be a lot of hard times, and like being honest with yourself about how it makes you feel, I think is something that like I have to practice and like understand that even though it's not great right now, it also will get better. And so it depends on what you're stuck on. But perseverance, I think, relies on getting up the next day and just moving the needle, even if it's like 1 centimeter. Like maybe you worked on a piece of documentation you've been putting off. You never know how many times you're going to share that out and somebody's going to see it and be like, whoa, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think that summed it up really nicely. Vulnerability, being able to put yourself out there and say, hey, I feel stuck. I feel bad. This hurts. This is scary. Like all those things. Our first pivot was from a suggestion from my dad. Our second pivot was a suggestion from Simone's dad. We were going to
Mm,
everyone for advice when we were stuck. And now we have advisors and other formal kind of people that give us advice all the time, but you never know where the name Clutch, that came by part of running it by my 19-year-old sister, who
mm,
was like, your last name was not cool and hard to spell. So it's like you using and being comfortable sharing those things with your community, I think is really important, and something that sometimes first time founders think is risky because they think someone's going to steal
mhm,
their idea. And it's like, no, no. Most people will never be able to do the amount of sacrifice and hard work it takes to get a company up and running and then profitable, let's say, or whatever the end goal is. So
mhm.
having the ability to rely on your community and be okay with them giving you feedback is something that I think is a strength of both of ours.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of vulnerabilities, that's a good segue. I'm gonna tap into vulnerability a little bit, Madison, and see if you can come through in the clutch. See what I did there?
I saw that.
Ah. Uh, so think about one thing you want to accomplish. What obstacles do you need to overcome in order to do it?
One thing I want to accomplish with Clutch.
You it could be with clutch, or it could be just you as a leader growing in clutch.
Sure. Um, One thing that I want to accomplish long term with Clutch is being, or as a leader, a startup founder long term, is the ability to impact a million people. I've always wanted that, like positively impact, excuse me, let me be super specific. Positively impact a million people. That's been something that since I was little, I've always thought about. I'm like, I always look to Oprah. I'm like, wow, Oprah has the ability to just impact millions of lives like this all the time. And I thought that was just remarkable. And something about it really drew me toward entrepreneurship because it's hard to impact a million people in most career paths. And it is more, it's possible in any career path technically, but it is easier to
Hmm.
do when you're an entrepreneur or leading a massive organization that has a lot of impact. And so for me to be able to get there is going to take a lot of risks. I'm going to need to get even more comfortable with risk taking and honestly failing. Um, it might be with Clutch, it might be with something else. I just know that it's going to be a personal growth experience, a lot of death to ego, a lot of putting myself out there in ways that are uncomfortable, and believing in the vision that I'm set out to be on this earth for unabashedly. I think when you start to put your ego in the way or want to look like you're right all the time, or the more spotlights on you, right, on the trajectory to impacting a million lives, the more critics that'll come out. I do care right now too deeply about what other people think about me personally. I know that if I'm ever going to impact a million lives, I'm going to have to be okay with people possibly hating me, truly. Um,
Hmm.
and that's something that I am working on and trying to really find my center so that I am fully equipped to get to that later stage and make that impact possible. Because that's more important than people being mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and we over here at Rise Urban Nation support you, and that was just beautiful. I was
Sure.
like, yes, yes,
Yeah, no, I
so,
appreciate it. And I have so much support, right? It's always just a few nasty voices whenever haters come out, but the more attention you get, right, there's always more negative attention that also comes in. We've already experienced it with the bit of accomplishments that we've been able to have over the last couple years. But yeah, Simone has a really great
mhm.
praxis to not care, and I admire that in a lot of ways. I know I'm serious. Um, so
You
yeah, it's
know,
so,
some of
definitely so. Huh?
I think some of that comes from Simone's childhood growing up, and I think well, Simone, you want to speak to that, like how you growing up, like, has in the story that you shared with us briefly, how that's kind of helped you take on that proxy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot of different things that it's not that I don't care about what people think. I just care about the what the right people think, I think, in my life. Like I'm
Mm,
not going to, and I think there is something, it's like, the yin and yang. Like I do think there is something to thinking about how what you do and what you say impacts the masses, and like there is something to that, and I think it's important to consider it. I just naturally don't. I have to like do it on purpose. But I think, my parents always told me, they're pretty religious. We're Christian. So you have God, and then you have us, and then you have your family, and then you have your friends. And like that kind of like weird hierarchy has always stuck with me in my mind. So
mm,
it's like, you know, if worst comes to worst, we are here for you and you're never alone. And so I think the idea of like knowing that you have people that you can depend on and their opinion of you meaning the most is what I think brings a lot of peace of mind, because then you don't have to guess what everyone's thinking, right? Because you're not going to always know. But the people that in your life matter, or in your life that matter, will hopefully eventually tell you. So yeah, we're different in that way, but it's not. It's like one of those things that's like a yin and yang. I think both elements are important, right?
yeah, something that I love that both of you have in common is that the the themes that you speak of, permission to fail faster, has been prevalent in your story. And um, one thing I want to ask, what's the importance of giving people room to fail?
Very important. We talked about that since day one. I think I failed so much. I failed many a test in college. I don't think I failed a class. I almost did. But I think given the room to fail at the right time is also really, really important, because it allows you to learn much more quickly and learn how to bounce back. I think the biggest thing from failing and learning to get back up is it just gets that much easier over time. And so you know when it comes, you know how you're not always going to know exactly how it feels, but like, okay, I'm going to give myself a day and I'm going to get back up, get back on the wheel and like keep it going. And I think like failing fast is scary for people because you have to take that risk that much sooner. Like Madison was talking
Mm,
about, you kind of have to like look like a fool sometimes, or like, like when we were raising capital and I went to like most of my network, it was like very, nobody wanted anything to do with it. They were like, what is she talking about? Blah, blah, I didn't care. So that was an interesting lesson for me though, because then I was like, oh, okay, I know how to sell. Like I had to learn how to sell this story because I'm not
mm,
naturally like a storyteller, but I feel so much stronger in that because I was like, because of that failure essentially that I experienced. So you'll always be able to learn from it, but you have to put yourself out there in order for it to happen.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Right.
perfectionism is something that is toxic to entrepreneurship. I think they are
Mm,
complete opposites. There is no entrepreneur who has had a perfect journey. There is no product that's perfect. There is no solution that is perfect. And so when you hold on to things like perfectionism, it doesn't give you the space to have failures. It doesn't give you the space to acknowledge or put things out there that aren't 100% bulletproof. We're constantly putting things out to the world, whether that's an actual technology release or just marketing materials that are not perfect. And that is putting us at risk of possibly, a failure happening, right? A customer not being satisfied, an embarrassing moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Why would I do that, right? But that's okay with us. I, especially in these last 2 years raising capital, have gotten so much rejection. Hundreds and hundreds of people have rejected me. I do not see myself as a failure of fundraising. You know what I mean? Like, I don't internalize those rejections, even though sometimes I do have bad days where I'm like, oh, this just feels so bleak. But at the end of the day, like, we were able to raise, $2 million so far, and that is something that is a success in most people's eyes, and in our own. But I'm just saying, like, no one would call me a failure for that. Yet I constantly had to take L after L and fail after fail until we got there. And so I think that the other thing about failure is, like, it comes with being successful. And if you're not okay with failing publicly and constantly, it will limit your ability to have success. It is totally possible to be a perfectionist and be successful. It just will come slower. Because what do they say? Perfectionism is the, like, barrier to progress or
That
something like that.
yeah, I think it's like the death of progress or something
Yeah,
along those lines. But
exactly.
you hitting a lot of gems right now.
Yeah, because progress is everything in startups, in iterating and pivoting, in relationships. Make progress. Get in the right direction. Don't
Mm,
give up just because you weren't perfect the first time. That's nuts. Like, that's crazy.
nah, I love that. Another thing I noticed that you and Simone may have alluded to this earlier, looking for somebody with a different skill set so that it can help balance out. And I'm assuming from me talking to both of you, I kind of know who's the storyteller of the two. And um, one question I want to ask, like, how do you connect with someone with a different skill set? Because I think some people have a hard time doing that too, and you've been able to do that so successfully. I feel, Simone. Like, so how do you connect with someone with a different skill set?
Yeah, I think it's knowing yourself and also appreciating the qualities in someone else that you don't have. Like, I don't ever have a strong desire to be someone that can like pull people in like Madison. I but I appreciate that about her because I think that like she corrals our team in a way that like makes them excited about what we're doing. And it's like one of those things. Well, I shouldn't say I don't have a desire because I don't want it to sound negative. Like, what I mean by that is I admire those qualities and I also know what strengths I bring to the table. So I think like being confident in whatever strengths you have and that you bring to the table and knowing that they're valuable while also and being able to admire strengths that another person has who might be different than you is important. And like I think sometimes things come to a head when you like disagree, and learning how to disagree is like something that I think we're always working on because we're so different sometimes that can become like a problem. But at the end of the day, I think, yeah, what I just said, recognizing who you are and like what you bring to the table and why it's important while also being able to acknowledge what somebody else is bringing to the table. Because I feel like people think of it as like, I am not this, when it really is I am this and they have
Mm.
this, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
that makes total sense. Go ahead, Madison.
I also think thinking about working with other people at the kind of the greater good, right? It's amazing finding someone who is so much like you. When Simone and I met, we were so similar. We still are very similar in a lot of ways, but when we met, we bonded because we're similar. That's how you initially make friends, based on common interests and personalities. You usually don't seek out friends that are 100% different than you. And so I think what is great about evolving friendships, working relationships, building a team is that once you recognize what's similar and what can get you on a level footing to have maybe the same vision or the same goals or the same values, then when points of conflict or difference come up, you want to get back on the same page. You're fighting for the bigger goal of clutch, friendship, teamwork, right? And you have already bought into that. And that's why Simone earlier, when talking about hiring employees, it's so important find someone who really will complement the team dynamic, because you can always teach a technical skill and they can always learn and develop how to get better at a technical skill. It's much harder to teach someone how to be a great team player and how to make compromises and communicate and be vulnerable when things aren't going perfectly. And so, yeah, Simone and I have done a lot of just like growing as individuals, as co founders, as friends during this process, because it is really hard to constantly have to make big decisions every day and have different perspectives on how they should be made. No one's our boss,
Mhm.
you know? So it's the two of us constantly putting our heads together and thinking through and innovating on what the next step might be.
Yeah, and it's I think it's not only just important in the hiring aspect and the growth of the team, but the actual growth of the company as well. I've talked to VCs before, and I say, how do you decide who you're gonna fund? Like that team right there seemed like amazing, and they'll look at the team like, yeah, they had the skill set, but the team was dysfunctional with the way they communicate, how they treat each other, and how the and we didn't believe that that team was going to last very long. So that gave us pause, right? And so it makes it important all the way around. So I'm
Totally.
greatly appreciative that you mentioned that. Um, now, I want to go back just a little bit because I like to take because some of our listeners might be in college, just graduated, and they're trying to start their entrepreneurial journey, or maybe they've been in the workforce for some time and they're trying to pivot because they followed the corporate route and they realize, you know what, I got this idea that I really need to get out of me, right? And so I'm quitting this 9 to 5 and I'm going to start this idea. And sometimes when I used to talk, at least with the entrepreneurs who are just coming out of high school or out of college, they have this grandiose idea that they're going to, like, I got this idea and I'm gonna put it and I'm gonna start making it happen and it's gonna be successful just because it's a great idea, right? And it doesn't always work like that. Like sometimes you have to start from different humble beginnings to get you started in that journey. Like not everybody starts out in that journey. So this question I'm gonna ask you was just to give them the humble journey of how you had to start from somewhere first before you came this amazing CEO that's going on your world tour and people writing all about you. So that question is, what was your first job?
Yeah, my first job. Okay, my first job was in high school. I was working at Hollister. Hollister has done a really great rebrand in the last few years, but back then it was the cool kid brand that was like very exclusive. And I actually owned no Hollister prior to getting that job. I was referred by a friend and I wanted some part time work. And so I remember I interviewed, I started working there, I bought the clothes, got the perfume, and was like, what did I get myself into? Um, I worked Black Friday. I remember I was like 16 years old or something, and at midnight I had to go to the mall and work from midnight to 8 a.m. And I was like, this is crazy. But it was really fun. I worked with a lot of people my age, got paid 7.25, saved that money for college, and really, felt good about my work. I really like working hard, I guess. And so even though it wasn't the most amazing job ever to get started, it did teach me a lot, and I really appreciate that experience. And I do think that's what helped me get an internship my freshman year of college, was the fact that I already had some work
Mm.
experience and could speak to teamwork and could speak to leading and things of that nature. So yeah, definitely, no matter what your first job is or what your current job is, there's always the ability to use those transferable skills and bring them into the next role you're in.
Yeah, your first job. I was envious of it because I felt like the people at Hollister always smelled good and always had the great clothes, and I needed that discount and hookup, and I could never get it.
I hear you. Listen, they made you buy your own clothes even though you worked there, so it wasn't. Most of my friends
What?
went, yes. Yes, don't even get me started. It was all an
Oh
illusion.
yeah.
I had flip flops on in the winter in Indiana. That's crazy.
Wow. All right, Simone, what was your first job?
My first job was as a lifeguard in my neighborhood pool.
Okay.
So it was like walking distance from my house, and like nobody ever came to the pool, but I always showed up and stayed to work. So it was interesting because you had to do like a whole training to get prepared for it. Like you had to do this swim test and all these different things. And then you actually kind of got to do like some chemistry on the pool, like shocking it and like cleaning it. And like I learned all these different like weird skills. But I think that like the thing I got from it the most was like I really could have been that person that just like clocked in, left, walked home, and then came back to work. And I just
Mhm.
never was. Which I think kind of speaks to what we do today. Like, even if nobody's watching, like, I'm still going to be there and show up because
Mhm.
that's like, that's, you have to be there to get something going, even if nobody's watching you, right? Like, nobody's paying attention. Now we have some people watching, but yeah, that was my first job. It was a
Love
lot
it.
of fun. I would just hang out
And
with my boyfriend at the pool every day.
and I'll say to that, like work ethic is a tangible soft skill that you can't teach or
Mhm.
you can't train, right? So that's something that you have a competitive edge over some people versus others because you had that and you got to do
And what
very.
she alluded to about integrity. I think that's the hardest thing about
Hmm.
entrepreneurship if you don't have it or you haven't practiced that
Hmm.
skill is what do you do when no one is watching? Truly. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
that was a really, really good point.
Right. Now, now tell me this. Now let's go into now that I know that what were some steps do you think helped you both be successful in your entrepreneurship journey and starting this company? Like when you look back on it, what was the steps? Like, hey, you just like stay with key three steps. Let's not go past three steps.
I'll start. I always have this kind of process for whatever I'm doing, even if it's going to college or just trying to make really big decisions. One is finding good mentors. Two is getting some real life like kind of shadowing experience. So it wasn't shadowing what I did, but I actually quit working at Microsoft because it was a really big company and I didn't get to see kind of how
Hmm.
the sausage was made or whatever they call it. And so I went to a very small company to see how the internal operations are run for really small, scrappy companies before going to do Clutch full time. So I always look for some sort of opportunity where I can visualize what it'd look like for me to take that next step. So yeah, mentors, some sort of visualization process. And then the third one is like trusting my gut to tell me if what I'm headed toward is the right decision. I look for moments of validation externally. Simone and I, when we first had the idea, we said, hey, we're going to just give this a go. If things fall in place even a little bit, that means we should keep going. And every quarter, every year since she initially called me, things have aggressively fallen in place. And so it's that external validation and listening to your intuition and listening to God, the universe, whoever or however you view that, and really relying on if this wasn't for me, then these really big milestones would not keep happening. And so those are kind of the three ways that I think about it.
Yeah, I think I want to agree and echo with what Madison said on like trusting like the universe. And I know it sounds very like, I don't know, otherworldly, hypothetical, but like it is very true. And I think kind of following what opportunities are being given to you or following your gut when you don't think something's right. It can be scary. You might be turning down additional money.
Mhm.
You might be turning down a potential opportunity to be an accelerator like we did at one point. Like it could look like anything when what she's talking about. So I definitely think that is one of the things I would say are key as well. The other two I would say is constantly when you're in that space constantly, when you're in that space of confusion, right? And you have this
Mm,
idea, but you don't know what track you want to follow, asking yourself who, what, where, when, and why with
mm,
the idea, and just like being able to write it down, I think is really important because it helps you wrap your mind around how am I going to execute on this. Um, Having ideas is wonderful, but like you have to be able to like take it to the next level and execute on it as well.
mm,
And I think the third thing is probably just like staying open. Like, as weird as it sounds, like just be open to what's coming to you and like learning
mm,
how to accept it. Um, is kind of what I've learned because I've always been pretty closed off, like when it comes to new relationships, experiences in general. And I've learned that like being more open allows for more opportunity to grow as an entrepreneur because you never know what kind of doors you'll be stepping into or what kind of opportunities
mm.
you'll be able to unlock for other people, even just through your own journey. So
Yeah, I love that. And I always tell people I'm in love with the journey of entrepreneurship, and when you're open, that when your hands are literally open and you're open to receive opportunity. And then on the flip side of that, you know, I tell people life doesn't happen to you; it happens for you. And so when you're in that essence of what you all are talking about, um, when that one door closes, that's not something happening to you. That's happening for you, so you can get to the door that was meant for you to walk through, right? The connection that was meant for you to have, so that you can have the success and milestones and experiences to prepare you for what's next. So I love that the way you both summed that up in a nutshell, and thank you for sharing that. So let's end off like this because I want to know from what do you think the future has in store for your industry, and then tell me we'll close out with what projects you're currently working on within your organization and what we can expect next, and how can people find you.
yeah, I can just go ahead and start and let Madison close this out. But I think the world is moving away from your traditional kind of career. And I think the creator economy is helping to define that more and more for people. And so this idea that you have to like be in kind of one place at a time to make money is really becoming very antiquated. And I think we have to kind of get on board with that concept. Like the engineer that works in construction might also have like a YouTube podcast where people advertise because he educates people on how to build small structures. Like
Mhm,
that is where like that is a creator economy. It's people with these like skill sets that you would think are just very like structured and scientific that are like using those to have creative outlets. And I think that that's something that people are only able to grow on. So the freelance industry might be something, or creator economy might be something that allows people to qualify for an apartment, get, qualify to buy a house, get a car, start their 401k, have a healthcare plan, like building around that is I think where the kind of world is going, especially with this next generation. None of them just have one job. Like they
mhm.
don't trust that like that 9 to 5 shtick. Like they're like, look, if I can work and make money and do it on my own however I want, like why would I pass that up? So I definitely think that's where the world is going in terms of the industry that we're a part of. And then I forgot your second question.
So, Madison, if you could finish us off with the second
Yeah.
question, what projects are currently going on at Clutch? What can we expect in the future, now and going into the future? And give me all the ways that people can connect with you.
Absolutely. We're closing out the year, looking to have multiple creators make over $10,000. And hopefully we can get that number even higher by the end of the year. We have some cool partnership opportunities in the pipeline, really cool updates on our product that we'll be announcing in the new year. So, yeah, definitely find us on all social media platforms at that's clutch_com or clutch.creator for a more creator centric profile. And then if you do need help with any sort of social media marketing, go to that'sclutch.com and fill out our quick entry take form, and we will set up a call with you immediately thereafter. And if you're a creator looking to make some money in a sustainable way, also check us out at that'sclutch.com. But I just want to say that what Simone said about the creator economy is so on point. And I think the last point I'll just make is that the creator economy is making accessible entry points into industries people have not been able to access before. There are people like Quinta Brunson. She started on Vine and now has a whole production company, has a number one show in America. Do you know how hard it is to get your pilot picked up by ABC? That doesn't just happen, but the creator economy opened doors for her. And there's so many other examples like that. The example Simone said about the construction um, engineer, maybe he then starts his own construction um, um, like engineering boot camp or company or something like that. That is much harder to do, but having millions of followers can allow you to then run a Kickstarter campaign and raise enough capital to become an entrepreneur, where that used to be confined to people who could raise from banks or VCs. So the barriers to entry that were always around for some of these more exclusive industries are falling away because of the internet and because people can create and disperse information broadly. And that's what's super exciting about what we're doing and the space that we're in.
Yeah, I love it. Madison and Simone, I want to thank you so much for coming on
Thank
Rise Urban
you.
Nation, sharing your stories with us, getting vulnerable, and also reminding us that there is another path, there is another way, and if you have a great idea, you feel inspired, or you're looking for a way to, create your idea and an outlet, that there's a way. You all are paving the way. You're making a space for us to have voices and make a living. So I'm loving that already. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. Any last words of wisdom for the people before we go today?
Like Simone said, don't stay stuck. And which is,
Don't
I
stay
think,
stuck.
actually one of the biggest things. I'm like, she's not wrong. Don't stay stuck. Keep moving. Make progress. Do little
Simone so
things.
blunt with it too. She's like,
Yeah.
don't
No,
stay stuck.
right. That's what Mason was saying this whole time. Pivoting, failing, all that stuff, being vulnerable. All you have to do is not focus on staying stuck and really see what is something I can do that can move the needle 1%, 10%. Those small incremental changes are how big things can happen. So I actually thought that was really a good point.
Let Simone, I just thought, like, if Nike could have the slogan "Just do it," you might need to brand this slogan, "Don't stay stuck."
Oh my gosh. Sell some merch. Oh yeah.
Words of wisdom from Simone. Thank you both again. Appreciate you both.
Thank you guys.
And don't worry, if you're driving and you're listening to this, I'm going to get all of their information and put it in the show notes so that you can connect with them, get on their email list so you can see what's coming in the new year, and just stay connected. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.